talking about the progressive web. He just decided to do this on Tuesday.
Yeah, so this looks a little rushed.
The product is not rushed.
Yeah.
Yes, the demo isn't, but the presentation is.
One announcement next Thursday is the quarterly at For the Win, which is pretty nearby to here.
Which is the AMC 21.
Yep, right over
Mark.
by that
Right
bowling
at-
alley.
Exactly.
And next week we have Nahara doing a brown bag, sort of repping the architecture competency group that she leads, and the following week will be Tony's brown bag.
And
Oh yeah, yeah, I'll be
Oh.
on here.
Nice. Okay. So
we,
yeah.
we have some good stuff next Thursday, not next Thursday, Thursday after, regarding Webpack and getting, like doing all the DevOps related stuff to get an application online. So we're using it currently for a current project, so I distilled it down a bit to make it a little more consumable by anyone and to give back to people that want to use it. So we'll have a demo code and all that stuff 2 weeks from now.
So yeah, Steven, go ahead and kick it off.
Cool. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Steven. I've been here just shy of 2 years. I'm a senior engineer. Pretty much been doing solely front-end work since I started here. So let's see. Basically, today I kind of want to talk to you about something I've come across very recently called, they coined this term of progressive web. By far, Chrome is kind of leading the baton on this. As far as supporting this kind of idea, it's Chrome and Firefox for now. Safari kind of lagging behind. There's a couple of core pieces of technology that, as far as WebKit is concerned, it's not on their priority list. So for some of these things that are getting introduced, it'll still work pretty much on most modern browsers. But however, some of the features that are really kind of core to the progressive web will work for Chrome, will work for Firefox, but won't work for Safari. What's that? I actually haven't tested this on IE, so afterward, for those folks with Windows, you can give it a go. Let me know if it's horribly broken. So basically, the progressive web, it's kind of a weird idea. But really, this quote I think sums it up nicely. And so, yes, a progressive web app uses modern web capabilities to deliver an app-like user experience. They evolve from pages and browser tabs to immersive, top-level apps, maintaining the web's low friction in every moment. So we'll dive into this some more, but I figure I'd rather show than tell as to what really is a progressive web app. So there is, basically this app is kind of how I started down this road. It's called Pokedex.org, and it's literally just a listing of all hundreds of Pokemon, all kind of put together as this works, as a web app. So basically the idea is you navigate to Pokedex.org. Now he's done this on Chrome on his Android device, and what you see there, which is really important, is that you have a banner that slides up from the bottom that just says, "Whoops." Here I am showing the Chrome computer. There we go. So this is important here. It's basically, this is one of the defining features of a progressive web app. But the idea here is that with the right configuration, the right setup, you kind of meet this list of criteria, that Chrome will automatically create a banner, slide it up from the bottom and say, hey, would you like to install this? And you can go ahead and just add it right to your home screen. So then, he goes back to his home screen. There's the new icon, looks like any other app you've installed from the Play Store. And then he opens it up, and boom, it's the same website, but now it looks like a full-blown, full-screen, top-level app. The idea is here really to kind of blur the line between what is a mobile website and what is an actual mobile native application. And that's kind of, at least in my eyes, the defining feature of a progressive web app. That really is kind of this idea of, as I said from the very beginning, or rather the opening slide here, escaping the tab. This is really kind of the main goal of progressive web apps. So to revisit, this quote, features of this quote are really what I bolded out here. It's modern web capabilities to deliver an app-like user experience, all the while maintaining kind of a low barrier of entry with any website. You know, there's no installation, there's no going to the App Store looking at review ratings and stuff like that. It's just you punch in the URL, you're good to go. So that's kind of, those are the core tenets of what a progressive web app is. It's the goals, is what it's trying to still accomplish, all the while leveraging this kind of core piece at the top here, modern web capabilities. But what does that really mean? So really, you know, if we look back at this, Pokedex.org is like any other website. You go to it, you interact with it, it has items, you can click, you can scroll. So, I mean, really, at the end of the day, they are a website. It's like any other website. You build it like you would any other website. Really, to kind of to bring it to the progressive web, where this capability of installing, that's where you start layering in features on top of it. So when you build your website, you build kind of like you would for IE8. You kind of go for that very bottom level of requirements. Like what is the minimum browser requirement that this app needs to meet? So I would say personally, I'd throw out IE9. But like for modern web browsers, you know, Safari, mobile Safari, Opera, Firefox, Chrome, you know, as long as they're within the latest versions, you know, what you see on can I use, you know, whatever the highest usage percentages. Like if you build with that in mind, you can layer in your progressive web app features on top of that and not have a problem. So I'll kind of demo this later, but really to kind of show you again kind of what really makes it a progressive, what defines a progressive web app. I think you have to start over again here. But this is from the Chrome Dev Summit, I think it was last year when they first demoed this progressive web app idea. That they had all the attendees, you know, as long as they had an Android phone Chrome on it, that have to go to developerchrome.com, and as soon as they visit, they have a banner slide up saying, hey, would you like to add this to your home screen? And boom, they add it, they start it back up, and they really get that full screen, full app, top level app experience, but it's all still written with JavaScript, HTML, so on and so forth. So, you know, to really kind of go back to that quote we have, really the big important one was this idea of modern web capabilities. Now for Android Chrome on Android, there's something called the Web App Manifest. It's much like the Android manifest that you would write for Android applications. I think it's like Android manifest.xml. So for your website, you'll do something very similar. It's really, literally just a JSON file. You define your name, short name, some icons for different sizes to support different devices. So any resolution of phone, any resolution of tablet, as well as for desktop, you can actually save this to Chrome like you would any other Chrome extension, add-on, things like that. So for the manifest, you know, we have our name, show name, kind of the scope in which it's responsible for, and you'll see here that we also have this display standalone as well as background kind of theming colors. Where that really comes into play is, you know, if we look back at Pokedex.org, you know, we have this slide out banner show up, and we have an icon here. Now, if you recognize that same icon is what actually shows up when you install the app to your home screen. That's all defined here within icons. So you just display the size, you rather give it the file name where you're hosting it, as well as what size it's supposed to match, and you're pretty much good to go. So that, you know, after they add it to the home screen and they start it up, that theming, that background color that we saw at the very bottom of that manifest JSON, that's where this is coming from. You know, basically the short name I think is what this Pokedex.org would be, and then the background color is what you define as your theming color, your background color, as well as the icon again.
Yeah.
So
something you didn't quite explain was simply it's not just a link to go to the URL. It's more than that, which is what you're getting into and what server circles will be next.
right.
So it's not just a shortcut.
Yeah. Now again, like I kind of said this in passing, there is a list of criteria you need to meet in order for Chrome to say, oh, this is a progressive web app. I'm going to show a banner for it. And I'll get into that a little bit. The other kind of, there's two sides of the coin here with the progressive web app. You see one with the manifest JSON here, and the second one is what's called a service worker. Now this is very new to JavaScript. Currently only supported by Chrome and Firefox. I believe the IE Edge team is working on supporting this now.
It's high priority on their list.
I think WebKit will eventually get around to it. So a service worker is an event-driven worker registered against an origin and a path. Now for those of you who aren't really familiar with the idea of a worker, it's basically a separate thread that runs along the main thread in the browser. And workers have certain restrictions. They can't access the DOM directly, and they can only be, they can't be directly accessed. They can only be kind of spoken through event dispatches. And I'll kind of demonstrate that in a second. But as far as if I have a main thread of code, this is my main UI thread, I wouldn't try to basically import my service worker and try to call methods from it. What I would do instead is I'd basically have it like almost like an instance of it, or an instance of how to message to it, and I would send certain messages that it would pick up and know how to deal with. So to kind of expand on this quote, it takes the form of a JavaScript file that can control the web page, website, and is associated with intercepting and modifying navigation and resource requests and caching resources in a very granular fashion to give you complete control over how your app behaves in certain situations. Now, these certain situations can kind of run a gamut of things, but kind of the big one that's always kind of a hindrance with mobile app development to begin with is always network connectivity. Always a gamble. Your user either could be full service, no service, or somewhere in between, and you kind of have to build your app around that. So, if you're designing a mobile website that will look and behave like a mobile app, you have to account for basically this offline or semi-offline scenario. And so service workers really give you a very strong tool to handle that. And so we'll go into that a little bit later. But service worker basically has three main events that you would bind to. So if I were in my serviceworker.js and I'm going to write it out, basically this is how you would create your functionality. You add event listener for install, for activate, for fetch. There's a few other ones here. You can sync, you can push. But basically this install is the idea of when the page is first loaded and your JavaScript tells the browser, hey, I have a service worker I need you to register, that's where this install goes. And then after it's completed, it moves on to the activate event. And once that's completed, you can basically goes into a standby mode and waits for events like a message to it, or if there's a fetch, or if there's a sync, or a push. But really, kind of the core tenets of progressive web apps and really service workers in general, why you want them is you want your mobile app, your faux mobile app, to be network independent. Like it really, you're really limited according to your network OS. And for somebody, it's the best way you could put it. It's your app feels incomplete because if you're on the train riding through and you get a bad area, suddenly your app stops responding. That's where this kind of network independent really comes into play and really plays to its strength. Now the other one, re-engagement, we'll revisit this particular item later, but kind of the main thing with progressive web apps is really to provide a good experience, but then also to bring people back to your website, and that's where this re-engagement comes into play. And part of that will kind of play into this idea of the push events. And so without further ado, I'm going to show you guys the app I've been working on here for the past week or so. It's my next project. So this is what I've been working on. This is at HocketBards.com. Welcome to the Progressive Web. Thank you, Ryan. So really, I mean, this is about as simple as it gets. So it plays a random MP3 file. Unfortunately, it's just taking the same one So it picks a random number, has a certain number of MP3 files, it picks one at random, and plays it. So kind of what's really important about, or rather what I kind of wanted to drive out here is this app works entirely online and works entirely offline. So, I could do something like, I've just gone and talked, I have a domain, HTTPS, happyparts.com. And so if for whatever reason I lose connection, that I can still refresh the page, still have the app come up, and if we look at the network tab, that you'll see all of the assets from my website are no longer, basically showing from whatever URL. Here's the number of bytes. Here's the one to transfer. It's all coming from the service worker. And so basically, if we look back at kind of, if you remember that little lifecycle image I showed you guys, that first install lifecycle method is where you can basically configure the service worker and tell it, hey, I've got a bunch of things I need you to hold on to. And it's those that when you cache it really give you that kind of offline capability with your website. So, really you'll see here that basically here's all the files that are really kind of core and important to my app, and they're all cached. Like, I don't need a network anymore to use this. Now, unfortunately, I don't have an Android, so I can't really show you kind of what you saw with Pokedex.org. But you can also kind of do the same thing with Safari here by going to, again, happyparts.com, and it still works. Maybe it works. Might work. Well,
I don't think the audio likes going through the emulator
That's why.
because it's making some noise.
Okay. So,
No, it's the emulator's fault.
Digital farts, that's right. So, with Safari, there's a little bit of different thing you need to do, but really, all you do is you add to the home screen, you choose to add it, and boom, now it looks and behaves like a full-blown full-screen application. And I'm going to go ahead and play the simulator on this one.
It's making noise. It's just
Oh, is it really low? Did you hear that? No, I can't hear it at all.
It's actually really annoying.
it's making.
So if you could just like stop.
It's not gonna stop. I don't think.
It's still going.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. So now Chrome has some cool stuff as far as service workers are concerned. They basically made a whole new tab for it. And you'll see that basically here's the manifest that I kind of create, that same manifest JSON that I showed you guys, but now it's kind of not in JSON form. So here's the name, short name. Here's what I've chosen as my theme colors, and here's all the different icons for the different sizes of my devices. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to show you guys the actual source code behind this. It's really pretty simple. You guys see that all right?
No.
Nope. It's slightly.
I think it's the background that does
Yeah,
it.
probably.
It's the darker red.
No, it's the is a background wallpaper on
The preferences.
control.
This one looks better.
All right, how's that?
We got some zoom serviceable.
Okay.
Not the other way.
There we go.
There we go. So here is that same manifest JSON, and this is what's powering this view. And so basically, there's some kind of special meta tags you need to include in your HTML template. The big one, in order to tell Chrome that you have a manifest JSON where to look for, is this literally just a link manifest, and you give it the URL. Now the other one is also important here. This is basically telling Chrome that, hey, this is a mobile web app capable, and so that the next time you come back to visit, that's when that banner you saw with the Chrome Dev Summit as well as Pokedex.org. That's what tells Chrome to hey, show this banner, use the icon from the manifest JSON, and basically add the option to switch to their home screen. Now you'll see here that basically, for that little demo we did with the iOS simulator, that you basically have similar tags to tell Apple Safari or mobile Safari to do the same thing. Now the big ones here is basically this is how you control that the status bar color. So when you saw pocketbars.com, that you didn't see any sort of status bar in black. It was all just kind of seamlessly onto the page. That's where this comes from. Obviously, this pocket cards here is just controlling that content that when you assign the app a name, this is what it gets pre-populated with. And then this kind of stuff here is basically how you set the app icon. Now, this stuff is important only for the reason that you can add any website you want from Safari Mobile and add to home screen. But if this doesn't have this kind of meta information, all it does is take a screenshot of where you are in that app at that time, and then basically just makes a shortcut. So, not really quite the same. So this kind of makes it look a little bit nice, and you can pre-populate the name as opposed to whatever like the title of your whatever title meta tag you put instead. So kind of last but not least, I think that's really it as far as the index page is concerned. But really, kind of the meat and potatoes of this is here in the service worker. Now you see that basically I declare a cache name. This is the namespace I'm going to basically declare all my assets under. And then I'm going to tell it, here are all the files that are important to my application. You need to save these because these are core to actually making the app work. Without one or without, basically, I need all of these saves that at any time there's any network problems, this app still works and runs fine. And that's kind of where, these file names declared as they are, if we look back at the network tab here, that these are the same files that are being all saved from the service worker. So basically, this is how you tell the service worker, hey, when you see requests for these particular assets, go ahead and cache them. So I'll show you how to do that. But basically, this first one, this is the big one. This is when the app, or rather the page is first visited for the very first time, and you tell it that, hey, there's a service worker you need to be aware of. That's when this event fires. And this is when you can basically say, okay, when this event is ready, or rather, until this event completes, we're going to open up all the caches. We're going to open the caches. We're going to create a new cache under the cache name we've declared here. And then once that's ready to go, all you're going to do is say, take all the files that I've told you to cache and just go ahead and cache them. And that's it. Once this completes, this event basically reaches the end of its life cycle and it goes back to waiting.
Is caches a global window?
Yes. So that's the other thing. This caches item here is basically kind of a global under this event object here. Some of it's kind of wonky. I mean, admittedly, like this part kind of took a while to make sense. But there's a lot of kind of examples that all are a little hand wavy, honestly.
So
as far
it
as
isn't a global variable, but it is global.
it's global to the service worker within
There
this
you go.
function.
Okay.
Yeah.
Service worker.
Now, the next one here, this activate, is basically the next time you visit the site after you have a service worker registered, that basically it'll say, okay, let's take a look at the old cache under this particular namespace of cache name. And what you're going to do is basically wipe it all out, and you're going to repopulate it with all the same files that we told you to cache. So this is a way for you to basically tell the service worker associated with your website, like if you go from version 1 to version 1.1, that basically this is how you tell the service worker to update your cache, saying, hey, it's now updated, it's now out of date, I've got new stuff for you to hold on to. Maybe there's a couple of new items, need to add some new sounds, that sort of thing. That basically, this activate loop is how I do that. And so you'll see that basically, I go through all the keys, I look for a match of cache name, if it's there, go ahead and delete it, and then proceed again to install loop. And so this last one, this is the most important one. And this is basically how you tell the service worker that when you see requests for particular resources, go ahead and check the cache first. If you have it, use that. And if you don't, go ahead and let the fetch proceed through. So that's kind of important. The service worker is basically sitting alongside your actual web page. It's almost like its own little mini server. It's a middleware almost, a proxy. So that basically all network requests that come to your website actually pass through the service worker first. And so basically, in this case of caching, instead of letting the network go ahead and go out, then it just says, nope, I have it, go ahead and take this and go on. So that's where this from service worker comes into play. And then, basically, if I make any sort of network request that's not anything matching here, that I just go ahead and say, go ahead and proceed and fetch with that event request. So,
Is there any way within here to know whether or not you are currently connected to the internet?
No. What you can do is you can actually hook onto, you can basically add a catch to that fetch. So basically, fetch returns a promise, and if that promise were to reject, you can hook onto that rejection event with a dot catch. And with that dot catch, you can either revert back, basically you can have some sort of default file you just serve back, or some response you serve back, or you can basically sort of you can really do whatever you want as far as that request would fail, for whatever reason. So this is it's really succinct, it's really understated. This is really, really, really powerful because I've only done it for a very simple case here, and this is just basically if it's requesting for an asset that I've already told you to cache, use it, otherwise let it go through. But because this is basically acting as a proxy pass-through, kind of the sky's the limit as far as what you can do. You can hijack the request, go tell it to go somewhere else. You can do a variety of things. So this is really powerful. I can't really go into at length what you can do here because this has gone as far as I've gotten. But you can do a whole bunch of things like, based on certain conditions. If you get a request for, like, let's say, style sheet, if you need different theming based on whatever the concurrent user session, that you can just return a different file when they make a request for your style sheet, and you can apply whatever theme you want just because you've been able to intercept this fetch request. So that's kind of the big, or rather the major points with a service worker. Now, with the actual application, this is the kind of the entry point as far as our app is concerned. Really, all I do is wait for the DOM content to load, and then I'm going to add event binding for when that button is clicked. All that's kind of handled via this part button. But this is basically how you tell the browser that, hey, I have a service worker I need to account for. And basically, this is kind of harking back to that, with progressive web apps that you layer in functionality as opposed to kind of making it a core requirement. So this is kind of how you do it. That basically the first check you do is if the browser supports service worker, great, let's go ahead and register it. If it doesn't, oh well. That doesn't mean, or rather because of that, all the code that I've still written works for Safari, works for ideally Internet Explorer, works for older versions of Firefox that don't have service worker, all because I basically do this check, and if it's not there, I don't do anything. But the idea is, if it's there, I just tell it to register, and I tell it its scope. So you could basically make this, if you have a variety of different routes, like login or dashboard, whatever, you can register different service workers according to each scope if you really want to. This is all basically saying anything under pocketparts.com, this service worker is responsible for. So then, basically, once it's completed, I register it, and once it's ready, you can do stuff like that as well. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes of how this app kind of does its thing. As far as the actual button's concerned, I've got an event listener for when it's clicked, and I have an actual part utility here that brings up audio context, loads some sounds, saves them, and then once it's ready to play, it just picks a random item, buffers it, and plays it. So I realize I just kind of glazed over this, but this is really kind of secondary to the whole regressive app idea. Any other questions? Yeah.
So like this could be anything, you could have any sort of front end.
Yes, exactly. So that's the big thing is, I just chose plain old vanilla JavaScript because this is just a really simple app. I didn't want to get too deep, but really, you can put any framework you want. It doesn't matter. As long as you just have some JavaScript that says, you know, let's say this is React, and I have a React entry point that basically is it's going to bind to the roots div, and then it's going to tell React to render everything and go on from there. Alongside that code, I can just say, hey, if service worker is in the navigator, go ahead and register the service worker as well. And boom, like I have all my service worker ready to go, and it's kind of framework agnostic, so to speak. It doesn't care what's going on in the front end. All the service worker cares about is those events that I kind of have shown to you, and it can do whatever it needs to do. That is pretty much the extent here of toppingfarts.com. We go back to.
You're launching your startup.
We're still waiting funding. Sadly, this isn't how you feel. I thought it would.
I'll invest in Valor.
So that's pretty much it. As far as the future is concerned, service worker is still very much under active development. The way it stands right now is really what I've shown you as far as those event life cycles is really kind of it. And so the future of those service workers, you're going to see new event loops for things like getting push notifications. You can actually send push notifications to user devices all through the service worker, provided you set up a server that can have the right certificates to do that. Another one is geofencing. Then that kind of ties into the background sync here that basically, like any mobile app, if you're Chase Bank and you want to have a push notification for when somebody walks into a branch, that you can do the same thing here just from the web. And then they're going to add Bluetooth support as well as background sync so that basically, if you're to publish a new version of your service worker, that every once in a while this app will call home and it sees that you've got something new to sync, it'll go ahead and do it all in the background so that next time they open the app, they don't know it, but now they're running a new version.
So Chrome would be then managing all the different service workers that are potentially installed.
Right.
So you essentially are installing, you are installing a service worker that it is then managing.
yes.
Just because it's closed doesn't mean it's off.
Right.
It still means it's
Right.
on
So-
potentially, just like you'd have rights for any.
Chrome is managing
Any
this
app.
service worker. So that, where you saw this cache name,
Right, but you have the window open. If you have the
Back
window
here.
closed,
oh yeah, the browser still holds on.
Yeah.
It's not like as soon as the session is closed,
but the
It's
service
still gonna
worker is
hold
still
on to that
technically
service
running or can
and-
wake up and do things.
yeah, so I mean, it's basically that service worker is still registered in the browser, and it still has all of those assets here that I told it to cache. Those are still within the browser too. Now, there's limitations to this. I believe it needs to call home every 24 hours.
Yeah.
At least once, and then I think on top of that,
It has to call home every 24 hours just to try to not be stale.
yeah, something like
That's
that.
all.
And obviously, if there is no network, it'll still fall back to the cache. There also is a limit to how many files you can cache. I don't know the actual megabytes you can do. Obviously, my app has a very, very small footprint, so I haven't worried about that yet. But there is an upper limit to how much you can cache. Let's see, any other caveats? Oh, the biggest one above all, so I kind of have alluded to it a few times. There's a certain criteria you need to meet in order for Chrome to basically present you with that home screen. More specifically, service worker has a hard requirement that the page you're serving from needs to be HTTPS. It has to have a certificate because this is really powerful. This can be hijacked. There's a lot of potential for very bad things. So this is why this needs to be under, like this particular method is why service workers need to be registered under HTTPS. If you try to load a service worker under HTTP, you'll see Chrome throw a little error saying, this session is not secure, it's not going to register it. So you won't, I've got console log messages here that basically before I put a certificate on my server, I just see an error thrown and I wouldn't see any console log messages. So, that's about everything off the top of my head as far as restrictions on service workers. So basically going back to the future here, and then we've also got, basically these are a lot of the resources that I've been using as I've been learning. The Google Developers Network has a whole bunch of stuff on service workers. They have a variety of kind of starter apps and tutorials that walk you through what's a service worker, like what's their minimum, like how do you build a manifest JSON. So it takes you through all that, and I think it has like 3 different demo apps you can play with. All that can be found here. Oops. On this first one. And then these next 3 are all kind of blog posts from people that are all very well entrenched in the modern web network. And so all of these guys kind of have their different takes on progressive web apps, what you can do. Some of them have examples to other sites that are kind of demonstrating the idea. And then obviously this last one here is just the MDN for service worker. Just goes through the API, gives you some examples, and goes in length to kind of explain the API and some of the lifecycle methods that you can do. And then I didn't put this in here, but obligatory self-promotion. So I posted all the source code.
You went to GitHub.
Yeah, I went to GitHub.
It's available. Is it available? Just steal that thing.
GitHub. Okay.
You don't understand yet.
There we go. So I've got everything else in here. I kind of take you through a quick start, how to get things up and running. Eventually I'll get on there that actually shows how it looks on Android. And that's pretty much it. So if you guys have either questions you think of later, or you want some help, whatever, feel free to message me. But
The link I sent you has the state of service workers across all the different pages or browsers. Yeah. With colors.
hey, look at that. Okay.
So high priority work has begun for Edge, but 5-year plan so far, yeah, right? I'm surprised Opera is on that.
Pretty sure
Color.
is whatever.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So I'll add this into the resources as well. And I'll link this. I'll link this presentation into the chat. You guys can review as much as you like. That's all I got.